Iphc Media, coming to you live from Pretoria. This is the International Pentecost Holiness Church Media Briefing. Iphc Media, coming to you live from Pretoria. This
To the children of our Father who are members of the International Pentecost Holiness Church across the length and breadth of the Southern African Development Community, SADC, to all the general public of South African society, members of the media, I greet you all in the name of God Almighty, and you are welcome at the media briefing of the International Pentecost Holiness Church. I must emphasize while at this introduction that this is the only International Pentecost Holiness Church. There's no any other IPHC other than where you are at this moment. And we say that without any fear of contradiction. Now, we plea and at the same time instruct you, members of the media, if I were to put it that way, that there's a tendency often, probably because you want to sensationalize it and refer to us as a faction. We are not a faction. We are the IPHC. And we are saying that knowing well who we are and where we come from. We are IPHC. So we are challenging you that should you refer to us as a faction, we don't mind to drag you to court. We are we have appetite of being litigious. So, and there's a reason why I'm saying that. I may probably have to share that with you later. But after all, welcome. Today, we are here so that we can brief you as the members of the media, as we play a very important role in distributing and emanating important news to the members of South African society, so that if there's any confusion that seems to prevail in the community, you are the ones that can help and assist to clear that. Now, the basis of this media briefing is the unjustified and illegal involvement of rogue police that are rearing its ugly head, as we have said it before. Now, we thought these rogue and corrupt police have left us, but they seem now to be rearing their ugly heads. We will detail as to why we are saying this and why this media briefing. Members of the media, at our media briefing held in July 2022, we named and shamed rogue members of the South African Police Service, and at the same time vowed not to allow palpable malfeasance, threats, and intimidation to happen to any of the church leaders, particularly our spiritual father and any of our church members. This, of course, was also after the historic march to the headquarters of the SAPS to hand over a memorandum of complaints and grievances against these dishonest police officers. After the media briefing and our unprecedented march, which brought tens of thousands of people into the Pretoria CBD, things started to quieten down, and we experienced none of unbecoming conduct by the rogue and probably bogus police officers that we had experienced before then. As you will recall, in the last 2 years, we have strongly condemned, with contempt it deserves, and at the peak and loudest of our voices, the rascality and crookedness of the corrupt and rogue police officers. When we finally began to breathe a sigh of relief and enjoy our social environment free of infestation of the unethical conduct of police, then boom, the malfeasance is rearing its ugly head again. This is on the back of a trivial narrative driven by these rogue police, who we are going to name and shame later at this briefing, and those who are colluding with them to settle scores for factional battles. We mentioned in the past over 11 cases where police rushed to make arrests of our members, and particularly our spiritual father, without any evidence justifying such arrests. Those cases are still before courts as we speak, and nothing is happening on them except arbitrary postponements just to humiliate and tarnish out our father's image as he attends these court cases. This is attested by frolicsome and puerile articles written by a so-called journalist going by the name of Siyabonga Sithole from the Star newspaper. He has almost daily published a series of repeated, recycled, libelous, and defamatory news articles fraught with frivolous and unsubstantiated allegations against our spiritual leader. Now, this is the essence of why we have this media briefing today. There's this journalist, in actual fact, is a puppet journalist by the name of Siyabonga Sithole. According to our research, he's only 11, 12 years in journalism. He is really misrepresenting the profession of journalism. He compiles, cut and paste issues that were reported by other media houses in the past for only one reason, nothing else: to pursue and perpetuate the propaganda that his masters have sent him to do. And we will tell you who are his masters. He's in the pockets of his masters. And we'll reveal, we'll expose those masters today, and we'll narrate to you so that you clearly understand where we come from and why we have such media briefing. So this is Siyabonga Sithole guy. Writes articles, as I've said, cut and paste. You know, he doesn't know what he's writing about. Out of probably more than 15 articles, he attempted to call me once or twice. But in the rest of those over 15 articles, he mentions that he has failed to get hold of me, or we have never responded when he tried to contact us. That's a lie. And we can prove, but his time will come. He will respond at appropriate platforms at the right time. He should not think when we are quiet, then things are rosy. We are coming. His time will come. In the last few weeks, following a series of well-placed defamatory news articles placed in the Star newspaper, and the other thing is, I don't know whether the articles in the Star newspapers get edited by the editor-in-chief editors. That is questionable. The quality of that newspaper is really questionable. Small as it is, it doesn't bother us. It has a very, very small circulation and distribution, so it doesn't bother us at all. That is why we are quiet. But we are not quiet in terms of the action we are taking. We are quiet in responding to the silly articles and nonsensical articles they keep publishing. So at some point, even that media house, the Star, has to account as to why to the led such poor journalism to take place in their publications. These articles that are published in the Stars, the raw police officers led by a certain Constable Mphosa. There's a Constable Mphosa which later on will be linked to the case that I'm going to speak about, together with Warrant Officer Baloyi from Alberton Police Station, who we strongly believe are the agents of Leonard Modise. His cabal and syndicates began their so-called investigation into a matter that involves alleged fraudulent ownership transfer of 2 church buses. Now, this Siyabonga Sithole guy has been writing articles about the alleged fraud of 2 buses that were fraudulently transferred from the church to a private company that is owned by the church. Now, you ask yourself, the person that they accuse is a member of the church. The entity, unbeknown to them, belongs to the church. As I will demonstrate, they know nothing about what they write about. That demonstrates and shows their rogueness, as it were. Both the police, their masters, and those bogus and puppet journalists. And their master is none other than the leader of this BGP group based in Zirbekom called Leonard Modise. There is no price for guess who their lead source of information is. It is none other than a social media wannabe influencer, Modibe Modiba, going by the nickname Vladimir in X social media page or profile. He is the agent of the BGP group I referred to, led by Leonard Modise, a group currently occupying Zirbekom church facility illegally. We state that they are occupying our facility in Zirbekom illegally. We'll have such media briefing in the near future to tell you what will happen and what has happened with what we are saying now. For over a year now, this puppet so-called wannabe social media influencer is a hired gun. Modiba Modib has been and still continues to publish a series of seriously untested and defaming posts in his X, former Twitter, social media page or profile about matters he has no knowledge of, other than being fed lies by his masters to perpetuate a propaganda aimed at elevating Leonard Modise at the altar of the church spiritual throne. His manner of disseminating such defaming information about yours truly, our spiritual leader, and my brother in Christ, Tsepo Puti, clearly demonstrates that he is in the pay pocket of his master, Leonard Modise, together with the rogue police and his cronies supporting their cabal and syndicate to drive a propaganda aimed at discrediting, humiliating, and tarnishing the image of our spiritual leader. So this cabal and syndicate, that includes their master, Leonard Modise, the police, whom the two I have mentioned, and others. They are big generals that we know have a hand in whatever misconduct, rogueness that they do as the police. Big generals that are involved. We have their names. We have their names. Their time is coming. We are not quite. It looks like we are not doing anything right now, but we know as to when and how, leave that to us. We know. But those big generals, one day, they'll have to answer. As they say, every dog has its day. Now, this Modiba Modibe guy, I have annexures here that I may share with you, members of the media, if you may, but you can visit his page just as a reference. I'm going to quote his posts, one or two of his posts, to show he has no knowledge of what he's talking about. Now, here is the post that he posted on the 17th of August this year. He says, breaking news. The Hawks have discovered that the fraud and murder accused, then he mentions our spiritual father by his name, fraudulently took buses belonging to the late Comforter MG Modise of the Iphc Church and changed them into his company. Listen as I go along. What he says and what I'm going to say. He has no knowledge. He knows nothing. You know why he wrote this? Because he's in the pay pocket of his master, Leonard Modise. One, we have no fear of contradiction in saying that. We know why. And we have evidence and we'll produce it when we are challenged to say why have we said that. So this is the one. Don't forget it. Now the second one, he says he doesn't even in his post alleges or puts a probability thereof. He's so sure about what he's saying. But today we are telling him he knows nothing. He should not even tell himself that he knows a thing about this church. He knows nothing. He's being fed lies. That must get into school and smell the coffee. Now, another post that he mentioned here, he says, there's many. And he has a tendency, what he does when he makes these posts, he has a tendency of taking the National Prosecution Authority. He has a tendency to take the ministers from Department of Transport to Department of Justice. Minister Lamula, he will take him. Minister Chikunga, he will take him, and so forth. Now we are asking ourselves, when these ministers and these law enforcement agencies are being tagged by these so-called journalists and wannabe social influencer, well, what does it represent? What does it say about them? What are they saying? Do they believe in what he says? Do they question what he says? Or, the most important thing, do they take what he says? But we will tell you why we believe they take what he says. Now, he says here, the late M.G. Modise passed away in 2016, and he calls our father by his name, forged an affidavit to shift the ownership of the buses into his company's name using a fake ID. Whose company, right? Whose company? We'll show that he knows nothing what he talks about. So there's many. You can look at all these annexures, members of the media, or even visit his page on X, social media platform. Now, coming to the issues of the buses that are alleged to have been fraudulently transferred to a company, as I've read out his post, owned by our spiritual father, that is a complete blue lie. You know, out of interest, then I had to do some small research about what blue lie means. Very interestingly, if some of you do not know where the term or the concept blue lie comes from, it comes from, or it was coined by the manner in which the police were protecting each other against whoever they want to arrest. So a blue lie, surprisingly enough, you know, in Vernac, we would say amanga luhlaza or maka matala. In passing, we say that, so we think of it as a core lie. But in this case, literally, or out of literature, it's a word or concept that came out of a collective protection of certain individuals, largely the police, colluding against the accused. That's where the term comes from. Now we are saying to these police, these rogue police and their masters and those that collude with them, the allegation that they so believed that our spiritual father fraudulently transferred the two buses from the estate of the late M.G. Modise to his company are a complete blue lie. We wish to point out a few issues and pose questions about this particular matter. We have no fear of contradiction in doing so because we are not in the position of the police docket and have had no side of it, and therefore have no facts about the information contained in the police docket. So we are saying this because what we are going to say, or the questions that we are raising, and we have raised with them to consider, which they did not want to consider, is that we may be accused at the end that we are jeopardizing the case. No, we are not. These are the facts that we have asked ourselves and that we have asked them without having a side of the case docket. So we should not be accused of these questions that we are asking because we have no idea what their intention is. We can read through their acts. Now, the first issue or question, this rogue police, there's this Modibe writes a lot of hogwash and rubbish about our spiritual father. Then there's this Star newspaper colluding with him, doing the same thing for almost a year. Now the police are investigating them on the same trail of those nonsensical articles. Now ask yourself, who believes you? And who is the complainant in this case? Now let me tell you, the complainant is Leonard Modise, right? Now, there's two issues in this matter. They alleged, as I've read out Modibe Modise's post, that our father faked the smart ID card of Comforter MG Modise, right? That's what they say. And as they write in their articles, they say the ID copy was issued in 2017 and yet Comforter MG Modise passed on in 2017, right? So, indeed, if that is the case, that is fraud, right? Let's agree that if that is the case, that is fraud. But the question is, right, what have the police done with that fraud? Have they investigated it? Have they opened the case? No, they haven't done that, right? Only the media that there's been investigation, whatever, but we know nothing about that investigation. That's one. Two, then there's issue of buses where allegedly this fraud smart ID card is used, right? Now, ask yourself, the police are using a fraudulent document, right? The police are using a fraudulent smart ID card for a case where they make out or they threaten to make out an arrest, right? So instead of the police, ask yourself, and we are asking ourselves that, and we ask them, instead of them investigating the fraud, how was this ID procured, or how was it issued, and how was it obtained? Who are the people that made fraud out of that process? Ask yourself. But the police are taking a fraudulent document that they are supposed to investigate and make a conclusion about it. They are taking a fraudulent document and use it in another case, and to make this case valid with a fraudulent document. Now this case is about the two buses. Now they are dilly-dallying. The next thing, no, we are investigating the ID. Then the next thing, no, we are investigating the fraudulent transfer of the buses. You know why they are dilly-dallying? They are not sure of their strategy of how to get to our spiritual father, right? So they are thinking, if we use the ID, we're not going to be able to get him. Let's use the buses because the company is close to him because he's a director there, right? That's nonsensical. But with what I've said, there's two matters in one. There's a fraudulent document, a smart ID card, and the investigation and a docket where a fraudulent document was used. So the police now, they can arrest somebody with a fraudulent document. In other words, they validate a case using a fake document or a fraudulent document. You ask yourself, is that fair? Is that honest? Is that the conduct we expect from the police? So Constable Mposa and Warrant Officer Baloyi need to answer this question before they act on anything, or they will find themselves wanting, including the possibility of reporting them to IPT. Now, that's the first one. The second one, the complainant in this matter, as I've said, is Leonard Modise. And the basis of his complaint is that the buses belong to the deceased estate of the late Comforter M.G. Modise. We know for a fact, as the Iphc, that the estate is not closed. The administration of or winding up of the deceased estate is ongoing. The church is in actual fact one of the creditors in that process. Now, the unnerving question is, why is the executor of the deceased estate? Now they are saying Leonard Modise is protecting the property, the estate of his father. Now, we are telling you now, those buses do not belong to the estate. They belong to the church. On what basis is Leonard a complainant in the case? Therefore, Leonard has no local stand in being a complainant in this matter. He has no relation whatsoever, because these buses, they don't belong to the estate. They belong to the church. Now, if indeed they belong to the estate, the right procedure is that the executor was the one that was supposed to be a complainant. But the executor, as we speak, doesn't even know that there is a case open against the deceased estate that Leonard Modise is referring to. So there's something fishy there. It tells you, one, those buses belong to the church. They don't belong to the estate. But Modiba just said it here. It belonged to the estate. Hence, we're saying he knows nothing. You can go, media people, to the licensing department. Those buses belong to the church. So when he says those buses were stolen from the church, does he hear himself what he's saying? Do the police have an interest in understanding why are we saying that? No, they don't. All that they want to do is to arrest. You know why? Because they've been paid to do so. And they've been paid peanuts. 1,000 rands. Just to mislead and mess up society. Small change, just to mess up society. Now, the question is, why is Leonard, who is Leonard in the bigger schemes of things? With particular reference to the buses belonging to the church, allegedly belonging to the estate. So the police, before they make out their case, they need to ask exactly where do this bus belong to. And further, why is he the only one concerned about the buses and not his other siblings who are the beneficiary of the deceased estate? Right? Why only him? Now it goes back to Mudibe. It goes back to the Star newspaper, Siyabonga Sithole. They're doing their job, but I can tell you, they are failing and they will fail at their job, because their intentions are with malice, and they are indeed malicious. Now, next, the alleged crime, that of fraudulently transferring ownership of the buses, apparently happened in Pretoria, according to the complainant Leonard Modise and the police. The case is interestingly and surprisingly opened at the Alberton police station. Pretoria, Alberton, 2 regions apart, right? Why Alberton? You know why Alberton? If you recall, there's a case again similar to the same stunt and rogueness of these police that was open in Alberton, and yet the crime of sin was said to be in Germiston. Why the case was not open in Germiston?